this one or smaller in Chapel, Nebraska. Word of mouth is important. It's how information is spread. It's how information is shared, and it may not always be incorrect. May not always be correct. When people state it as fact, it is important to listen to what they're saying, not just because they're saying it to you, but because they are probably saying it to others, and that does and should affect the situation, because it does affect the situation. Because of the wind, I'm going to have this gentleman hopefully speak up a little bit louder, if that's all right.
Yeah.
But, tell me the story of Dean and how he lost it.
Well,
And it's,
how he just lost his vehicle and the cops came 5 deep or 6 deep. How many other people
there
came?
were 7 of them.
Seven cops came to take a homeless man's vehicle away from him in a town where he gets pretty much treated like a piece of shit. Because he's a little crazy. He wasn't always crazy.
It's windy. On windy part. Hopefully it'll carry better. All right, go ahead.
My boss at my old job here in Hood River told me that Dean was actually a sane person, had his brain together, and he drove over to Washington State with a pot card that they didn't recognize and got pulled over and they found marijuana on him. So he fought back with the cops because he thought he was in the right because he had a medical marijuana card that they wouldn't recognize. And so the cops beat him into what he is now, which is mentally out of his mind.
You got somebody kicking him down some money. He does try to observe the old school rules, but obviously right now this is his corner. He doesn't owe me nothing. So anyway, he was getting beaten up by the cops.
He got beat up by the cops in Washington because they failed to recognize his marijuana medical card over in Oregon. And since then, not everyone, my one friend told me that since then he's been mentally off. He's not, he can't hold a straight conversation. He'll talk to you normal for a few seconds and then go off into numbers and all this other stuff you wouldn't be able to understand, just rambling. Incoherent rambling is what you would call it.
Now, you were assaulted in
Arcata, California.
Arcata, California. Now, were you on drugs or alcohol or trying to hurt people or anything of that nature?
No, I was smoking a cigarette on a public sidewalk in America. I actually stepped off of Safeway property to not have to bother the security guard. He was a little old man, and he came up to me multiple times when I'd go on to Safeway property, and I didn't want to bother him. Just because I was smoking a cigarette, I didn't want him to come over and tell me to get off the property or something like that. So I stepped off onto a public sidewalk to only have a cop tell me you can't smoke a cigarette there. I said, I'm on a public sidewalk in America. I can smoke a cigarette here. Well, apparently I got beat up and maced because it's a college town and they can pass unconstitutional laws and the cops will enforce them, even though the cops have dedicated their life, supposedly, and even took an oath that they would protect my constitutional rights to not only violate them, but then physically beat the crap out of me and put my dogs in jail for smoking a cigarette on a public sidewalk. Now, as the cop's taking me away, this is the important part. As the cop is taking me away, I look over to my right, and there's a college kid standing on a block up from me smoking a meth pipe, and the cops didn't bother to fuck with him. Now, my smoking a cigarette was a problem, then smoking a meth pipe should have been a problem too, but he was a college kid with money, so they were only picking on the poor people that day.
Now, the issue with you being afraid for your dogs and what they do to your dogs.
Yes, I've had multiple cops pull guns on my dogs for me being poor. My dogs bark. One of them barks. The other one doesn't. Neither one of them has bitten anybody or ever showed an aggression to people that would make anyone fear for their life. But yet I've had multiple cops in this country, mainly in California, one over in Chicago, pull a gun on me and my dogs, pointed at my family's head, and tell me to leave town.
It is family too.
Yeah. So these are my children. They're not dogs to me. I'm never going to have children. I'm taking care of 2 lives now for 12 years. They're 13 years old. And I've done that with barely anything in my pocket at most times. And I get no respect from the police. I get very little respect from the people with money in a town.
Now, I got a question about the way people treat Dean. Like, people aren't very good to Dean, and we can see that. There are some people who are.
There are really good people here. That's you can't trash a whole town because the whole town's not trash. But,
I do, but I know it's wrong to do so.
Yeah. But at the same time,
do people treat you like you're Dean ever?
I get a lot of hatred for begging, pretty much. I get treated like shit by... I used to get treated like shit by the cops until they harassed me to a point where I missed a court date, and I went in and told the court that I missed the court date on the phone because I couldn't charge my phone because the cops kept harassing me. Since then, I have not had the cops mess with me here. They actually wave at me. I have to grin my teeth and wave back because I don't want them to start fucking with me again.
Right?
That being said...
Now, how much do you think that has to do with homeless people not being willing to work together to stop stuff?
Well, it's more the fact that we don't have the means to stop it. Yeah, the homeless people could get together, but if we still don't have lawyers on our side or people willing to take our cases without trying to charge us money we don't have, we can't get anywhere. We can, and even once we do get somewhere.
So basically, even though it's illegal to do these things to you, it's legal actually to do them.
Well, no one's going to stop them. That's the point.
Right.
Is nobody's going to stand up and say, you can't do that to people. We don't have people. We don't have lawyers like the gay people have once they got money, because gay people didn't have the rights in the country until they made a living, because
pulled together and together.
Yeah,
just like black people didn't have rights until they pulled together and worked together.
Yeah. But yeah, you're not going to get homeless people to work together because either on drugs or they are mentally handicapped. And the ones out
or
here,
they're scared of everybody else who's fucking on drugs and mentally handicapped. And then we also have people like, of course, this guy here, I was told that he was schizophrenic. He's not. He's off the fucking wall, but for
who told you I was schizo?
The short fat lady over there. The one that's missing a tooth right here.
Yeah, her husband beats the shit out of people in her job, and she protects him. She kept him working, even though he grabs people. I've had more reason in this town to grab people and beat the shit out of them, and I haven't. But her husband, the same lady that's calling me schizophrenic, had her husband multiple times beat the shit out of someone at that Chevron.
Well, the other
thing he doesn't go to jail for it. If I beat the shit out of anyone in this town, I'm going to jail for it. But because
people told me that Dean was schizophrenic. They told me that you're schizophrenic. It wasn't just the lady over there either, but she's one that I can reference. It's local that you would know, that I'm certain you would know.
The Penguin, I call her, because she waddles across the parking lot when she walks.
Yes, waddler.
And when she gets mad, she goes. Rah, 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 rah. She reminds me of the Penguin from.
She reminds me of a Weeble.
Okay.
Because she never falls down.
Well, did you hear her scream yet? You'll get it when you hear her talk. When you hear her like talking loud or mad, she sounds like the Penguin from the first Danny DeVito's Penguin. She looks like him too.
She kind of does, but I don't want to say that because it's mean. I make fun of people's looks when they make fun of mine, or when they use their looks.
If she's going to spread lies that I'm mentally fucked up when her husband's beating the shit out of Chevron. Her husband was an employee at Chevron and beat the shit out of 2 fucking people that came in because they wouldn't wear a mask, and she's telling him I'm mentally fucked up.
Well,
he's got control problems.
Like, how much of that do you think comes from the police telling people that you're schizophrenic? I know for a fact they told me that Dean was schizophrenic. I know for a fact that they were telling other homeless people. You remember Logan and Shayna, the short blonde girl. She came over one day and they had a Tupperware and they talked to you for like 2 minutes and left. That was Logan and Shayna. They actually are on my videos. They were helping me to clean up the park and ride parking lot up there.
Okay.
But the cops told them that I was schizophrenic and that I was doing drugs with some guy in my vehicle and a bunch of shit like that. Now, with her, she didn't indicate that the cops had told her that, but several people have indicated to me that the cops have said that about myself and several other homeless people that are in the area.
Well, yeah, to abuse us, they got to make people think that we're not fucking human or we have a reason we should be abused.
My God, you should listen to my channel. You almost sound like me.
When the cops murder children in our country and they don't go to jail for it, it shows that our country's mentally fucked up. Not the homeless people. We're probably the sanest fucking people in this fucking goddamn world.
Now, with the situation where we had a black man choked to death in this country over a cigarette, you were beaten down over a cigarette.
Yeah. I didn't fight them to the point where they had to kill me. That's the only difference.
Well, he didn't fight him either. He couldn't have.
He fought there's video that showed him in the back seat wrestling with them, and then they pulled him out because he was saying he couldn't breathe. Then they stepped.
No, that was the other guy. That was the other guy.
Oh, okay, that was.
I'm talking
Floyd.
about the one they killed in Chicago.
Oh, I don't even. Is that recent?
No, it was way back. This is there were 7 people who died, all of them black, all of them killed by the police, all of them in ways that we both have people that we know who have died literally that way, who are on the streets.
Yeah.
So, all 7 of those deaths, including George Floyd was just one of them.
Yeah.
All 7 of those deaths were the major cases that they went, hey, we need to form BLM. We need to do something about it. We need to work together. This we shall overcome from the 1960s. Well, we still ain't overcome. We need to do something.
Well, they shot a black child in Chicago for playing with a toy gun at one point.
Yes, the BB gun, and it was at night, and they claimed that they were afraid for their lives. They didn't make any announcement. They just pulled up and blasted him.
Yeah, well, they also were on body cam laughing about it as they shot the kid in the back. On video, they held back the body cam from court because they knew they were going to prosecute the cops that shot that child.
They did the same thing with me, withholding body cam evidence, pressing false charges, refusing to take a report from me, and claiming that as long as I had charges holding over my head, they couldn't take a report. Meanwhile, the charges were only over my head because I tried to make a police report against specific officers.
Yeah.
And those officers are literally the same officers they sent me to. But like most homeless people, like you don't record every situation. Most people don't. Me, I have to, because everybody that is telling me these things are going on, and they know these things are going on, they can see these things going on, but again, they're afraid to come forward, afraid to step forward, afraid of being targeted by police, like you, like me, like
we
Dean.
don't ever get anything done with the video. Look at the black light. Look, we burned down our cities in this fucking country over George Floyd, and they're still out there murdering fucking black people. They're still, we literally burned our fucking cities to the ground for this man to show that we're done with you cops murdering fucking people, and you're still out there doing it.
And there, that's the key right there, murdering people. You didn't say murdering black people. And I keep saying no victim left behind, because I don't care if you're a man, a woman, a child, black, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. I don't care if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim. If you're a victim, you're a victim.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I said murdering people. They're going after the January 6th people so damn hard, but you're not even going after the kids that burned down our cities anymore. I know it's over different shit. Our cities were burned down because of the inequality, and January 6th was white people trying to take back our country. But they
didn't take back anything, did they? They just got people killed.
But they got one person killed, and it was one of their own. The other people,
they shot that girl in the head. She died.
Yeah, and that was one of their own protesters. No cops died that day. The only cops that died were the ones that committed suicide because they knew they were going up against their own people.
And that's what we're dealing with the veterans. I mean, this is a veterans town. I've had at least 10 veterans tell me about their buddies committing suicide coming home.
Well, not only that, when they come home, they're treated like shit, but they're coming home to a country that's no longer America. They went to fight for America and came back to a country that's no longer fucking America.
Well, how many of those people, when they turned 18, they joined the military. They didn't know what this country was about. They knew mommy and daddy's house.
Yeah, they knew what their immediate surroundings was about. They didn't realize all the other shit. And That's the way I was for years too. I lived in a small town in Pennsylvania. All I knew was my small town.
Now, I don't support them going to war, but I still want them home. How do you feel about it?
The way I feel about it is if it's to protect us, then fine. But our government makes wars just so they're not sitting around getting paid doing nothing, is what they. Instead of using them for humanitarian efforts and to fix our country and to do stuff for us, they make new wars for us to go fight so they don't have our military just sitting around doing nothing.
You have to test your toys if you make them.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're going to spend millions of dollars on a war just to have people fight so you feel like they're making their money, that you should be paying them. Like, we can't have 1,000 soldiers and we can't pay our soldiers when there's no war. Yeah, you can. You can have them do different shit other than kill people, you stupid motherfuckers. It's not that hard. We have nuclear power plants, 2 of them leaking in our country. Nothing getting done about it. While your politicians are spending money on a Caribbean island to molest children.
Well, all right. So we're getting a little bit ahead of what the topic though is, which is of course the nice people here in Hood River, also the complacency in Hood River, and Dean and your abuse, and of course, how many people have you known on the streets who have ended up like Dean but didn't start off that way?
A couple, but it was from methamphetamine, not from cop abuse. This one was from cop abuse.
Most of the time it is from meth abuse, and they have a specific name for it. It's called a drug-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
And after 2 years after you quit your drugs, your brain is going to try to repair, but it doesn't repair itself by fixing the broken areas. If you've killed an area through drug use, it's dead. It takes up to 2 years for your neural pathways to repair themselves by finding another route around the damaged area. And after 2 years, whatever damage you're stuck with, that is permanent damage. You're always going to be stuck with that. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, with him being in Hood River, he's traveled around quite a bit, obviously. With me being stuck in areas for long periods of time, getting to know people over long periods of time, keeping in contact with them over long periods of time, there's a lot of people that I've met who have gone through a lot of stuff. Now with him, his experiences have been different, but he's been to many of the same places. You got to hear he was in Chicago, he was in California. He's obviously here in Hood River. He's been to many of the same places as me. He's had similar experiences, but also I'm not going to invalidate experiences that he's had that are different than mine. Now then there's also the political ideology. He and I do not see eye to eye on a lot of political stuff, but the things that we do see eye to eye on, it's because of experience. The things we don't see eye to eye on, it's because of differences of experience. Because, all right, for him, he's been in Hood River longer than I have. His experience with Hood River is more extensive than mine. His knowledge of the area, where to go for resources, he's going to know all of these things better than me. A situation where I'm talking about in Boulder and he's talking about a situation in Hood River, well, Hood River is a lot different. Like, all right, how many people have thrown beer bottles or beer cans at you here?
I just get dirty looks. People,
Is that not what I said about Hood River? People don't throw beer bottles and beer cans at me. They just give me dirty looks.
But they also send their cops to harass me for the first year I was here. While I found out they were letting a child molester drive around their town with an infant child. So their priorities are a little screwed. They don't mind harassing and picking on a poor homeless person, but they'll allow a pedophile to go free. So, I mean...
Pedophiles.
Yeah, pedophiles. I mean, when your priorities are to bully and pick on a homeless person instead of maybe pulling over the child molester that's driving around with a 2-year-old child after he just raped 2 children a town over... your priorities are fucked. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I have 2 big dogs. I'm 6'4". If I commit a crime, you're gonna know it. They would have If I committed a crime, they would have a stool sample. They would have DNA evidence. They would, by the time, before they even arrested me.
Now, on my
So-
YouTube channel, you asked me about a sign. On my YouTube channel, these people get to see me holding that sign. What did people say to you about that sign?
They just thought it was funny.
Now,
And-
did they confuse you for me?
Yeah, because you have the same kind of hair and the beard.
Yep, and that's another thing with Dean. Dean has a beard. It's not pronounced like mine or his. He has a different color of beard, and his hair is actually cut shorter than mine now. But
That's true. Yeah.
yep, we do have similar looks about us. It's a homeless look. A lot of times when you don't get to shower every day, even if you have clippers to cut your hair, your clippers are not going to cut your hair. You need to take a shower and wash your hair first because it's full of dirt and salt. And the reason all of the dirt and salt sticks is because the salt comes when you sweat, and you have oil that goes into your hair, and that oil attracts the dirt and it sticks. You try to use electric shears on your head, you're going to break the shears and it's going to yank hair out of your head. Am I wrong?
Right. I mean, but with Hood River is, you got to remember, it's a tourist town. So they keep
You can't be seen.
they keep the businesses like the Motel 6s where I could go with my dogs and not have to pay an extra $150 a night because of my dogs. And they're usually priced around $70 a night, where every place in Hood River is going to be $150 to $200 a night. So when you're stuck in a place like this, you can't even go get a motel room unless you make $300 panhandling or canning or doing something. They took away our marijuana. We can't sell marijuana anymore to make our money. Now it's the government that makes their money. We were already poor. Now they're taking more shit away from
Just
us.
like making slavery illegal for everybody but the government.
Yeah.
Yep.
The corporations can run slave labor all you want, but if I tried to own people like they do, I'd be thrown in jail.
We've had 3 different states try to sue the federal government as well as their own court system over whether or not they're allowed to utilize slave labor in the form of people in the prisons. Some pretty big companies were utilizing the prisons for manufacturing.
They still are. The corporations are still fucking us royally as a whole society. The corporations are screwing us over big time.
Lots of corporate lobbyists. We got to have Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson lobbyists. And you look now, all that lobbying, all it did was allow them to do things that are harmful to the American people. And now Johnson & Johnson has got a $10 billion payment. Pfizer's got a, what was it, like an $8 million payment to each of like 40 different people.
Well, yeah, but they're making all that money back on the vaccines. That's one of the reasons we have the vaccines. I mean, and they're not vaccines, by the way, because vaccines actually stop the spread and cure the fucking disease when you get them. This one does neither. It's not a vaccine. Don't let them tell you that. It's a fucking goddamn sugar pill as far as I'm concerned.
A placebo. Yep. Well, you know, when they wanted to push that out, they had a lot of reason for that. They'd created so much hype with COVID, and it wasn't killing as many people as they were trying to push on us.
No.
And they had to give America a solution after making America that goddamn paranoid because everybody quit their jobs.
That's the reason that they fucking that they made it so most are federally mandated to take that shit.
All right, so you hear what we're doing here. We're having a political discussion, and there's stuff that we agree on,
When
and
our
there's stuff we don't
president
agree on. Go ahead.
Makes a mandate on something that costs people their jobs, costs them their livelihoods, puts their families in danger, and it's an unconstitutional mandate, and it's for a vaccine that does not cure the fucking disease, does not stop the spread. It gives you a slight chance of not dying from the disease. That's not a vaccine.
Now it does
That's
give you
a criminal action by our
it
government.
does give you a slight
Against the
chance of
American
surviving it, but we've also got side effects to consider, long-term effects, and we're just now starting to learn about side effects and long-term effects.
When I took the measles vaccine when I was younger, guess what? I never fucking caught measles. Why? Because it was an actual vaccine. If I take the fucking COVID vaccine and go into a COVID ward, I'll catch COVID.
So this is what a lot of conversations do become. They become political. And the political part, the reason it becomes political is because, like we keep on hearing from BLM, it's them white guys, it's them white guys. Which white guys? He's not making any laws. I'm not making any laws. We're not the ones who are committing these crimes
Show
against
me any
people.
rich black person that went in and helped the hood, that went in and helped the poor black people. There's not one. So you can blame white people in general on black, but none of the rich white people, Oprah, all those motherfuckers, left y'all motherfucking N-words is what they'll call you to the white people. All those N-words in the hood. And that's your own people doing it. Make sure you understand that we're not all the ones that you should be fighting. The ones that you should be fighting have your skin tone too.
The sellouts. And see, that's another topic I spoke about earlier today. When we had all those rappers who, their first album comes out, and what do they want to do? They come out with that very first album and they're talking about getting up and out of the hood. But the second album is all about bitches and hoes and getting laid and all sorts of glorifying the thug life. And why wouldn't they? You just made them millions of dollars on an album about how much the hood sucks. Well, now it's the thug life that many of these people are embracing, and that many, not just black youth and not just white youth, but youth all across the country, this is what they're having pushed on them, but they're also having it glorified in front of them.
I grew up in a small town called Freeland, Pennsylvania. Now, we never had gun violence in my town. Now we have a bunch of New Yorkers come down, all Dominican, from New York, and they're pushing the gang violence. And now one of my friends got shot in the head over $100 worth of cocaine. One of their kids got shot in the head.
And that's similar to when you go to parts of Fort Morgan or parts of Greeley, you have African immigrants all over the place. But there's a very specific set of Somalian immigrants in those areas that very, very much are pushing gang violence. Yeah. And they're also teaching gang violence to a lot of other people in the area. Like, of course, the wearing multiple sets of clothes, and after you commit a crime, you walk down the street, you shed a little bit of your clothes as you go down the street. When you get a block away from the crime, you shed some clothes, and they see that, it wasn't the same person or the same description that they had before, and you walk a few more blocks, you shed another piece of clothing, and pretty soon you're not close to the crime, you're wearing different clothes. And this is something that the Somalian gangs that are in that area are taking a very serious part of. Now, one of the things that this gentleman was speaking about earlier is like the brown-skinned folks here are totally cool to us. They treat us better than most of the white folks here. They don't give us all, and that's not saying none of them do, but they don't all give us those dirty looks like most of these white folks do. But the other thing is there is definitely a Mexican mafia influence here. But when you say Mexican mafia, that makes you sound like a conspiracy theorist. In specific, we're talking about regional gang violence and regional gang exploitation. For a lot of folks around here, when you see a Hispanic gang member, they might not actually be Mexican. They might be Dominican,
or Somalian, or any friggin'. I mean, that's one thing.
And they might be white. It might be a bunch of racists down in Alabama doing exactly the same thing. They're doing the same thing, committing the same crimes, but at the same time, we're blaming an entire group, region, or race on the things that are happening.
At the same time, now, I come from a small town, like I said, in Pennsylvania called Freeland, Pennsylvania, and there's a small town, a small city next to it called Hazleton. Now, that was ran by mob, all white, for years. I mean, we had a scattered few black people and a couple of Puerto Ricans moved in, but it was mainly white for years. And we had no gun problems, no violence. Now, when the inner city New Yorkers came down and they all happened to be Dominican and they all happened to have a brown skin color, that's going to enforce racism in your country when now you have gun violence in your town because a bunch of people came down from New York and they just happen to be brown, but they're shooting the place up.
And they're going to push it that it's brown people doing it. And in specific in those areas, it is people of brown skin who are actually committing those crimes. But are we blaming, just like we want to do, all right, so like Kyle Rittenhouse. Well, we get BLM trying to claim that all black or all white people, it's our fault that shit went down with Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, he didn't have anything to do with Kyle Rittenhouse. I didn't have anything to do with Kyle Rittenhouse.
And Kyle Rittenhouse didn't shoot anyone of color. That's the fucking facts. Just because they were standing up for Black Lives Matter, these one was a pedophile and the other one was a convicted criminal. But because they were white and sticking up for Black Lives Matter, and Kyle Rittenhouse killed him, I honestly think Kyle Rittenhouse should have went to jail because he left his state to go over and shoot other people in another one.
He crossed state borders with a firearm. He was not old enough to carry that firearm. It's against the law for him to carry that firearm across those state lines.
But because he was an upcoming cop, he was trying to be a cop and all this other stuff. They stuck up for him and they lied about a lot of shit.
Well, see, that's a lot of. I didn't actually get to follow the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I mean, I got to learn a little bit about it. But much of the stuff, like where you're talking about, it's very specific people. The people who came down to your town, they're from the Dominican Republic.
They're from the Dominican Republic.
But that obviously doesn't make every person from the Dominican Republic like that. But it also gives a small town like that and a small community that feeds the fuel for the racism.
Yeah.
I mean, here they see gangs. They see this stuff on the news, after watching all these gangster movies glorifying this life. And then we have a lot of people who make so much progress. Dr. Martin Luther King made his progress, and many people since, they make this progress for racial unity, especially what we did during the 80s.
Nobody's made any progress in a long time, and I'll tell you why I know this, because no one got shot over it. Nobody that stands up for any kind of has been assassinated since Martin Luther King. So nobody's made any progress. When they start trying to kill you, then you're making progress. So the only one that's made progress was Mr. Epstein by getting arrested. They killed him because he wasn't going to keep his mouth shut about the rich pedophiles that run our country into the ground. The Prince of England got caught with that shit.
Yep, that's right, he did. And here's the thing, the prince got off, didn't he?
Got let off. Yeah, well, of course, even if we did convict him, they have a thing in this country that's called political, what's that, where they're...
Diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity.
He doesn't get that.
He did, in a way.
They said that they weren't going to give him political asylum and they weren't going to give him immunity. And it was the Queen of England herself who said that. It was the United States who chose not to pursue.
Okay, well, they did it. We know that was just for show.
For show, exactly.
For show. There's no way. His mom's, the Queen of England's not going to come out and say, well, I'm glad my son was fucking little kids.
Now, one of the
not
things,
say that.
The point that I was trying to make with you and the Dominican thing, it's kind of like the situation with Dean. With Dean, they can use Dean to victimize any one of us if they want to. I mean, they could come and victimize him if they want. If somebody feels real obsessive about the sign that I was holding and they confuse him for me, they could potentially harm him because I held that sign here where he usually sits.
Yep. They can poison my dogs. They can do a lot of things to me that...
And they have done those things to homeless people I know. I've spoken out about that, and you've heard people on my channel speak out about their dogs getting poisoned. Go ahead.
Yep, I've watched, I've seen it done in California. Them come down to where the homeless camp and throw fucking hot dogs with razor blades in them and all types of shit and rat poison next to their camps, hoping their dogs eat that shit.
Now, how much, since people here in Hood River, it's not the beer bottle throwing, it's not the beer can throwing, it's not the screaming profanities out the window, most of the time.
Yeah.
How much
yell shit at me, but as long as...
Well, how much does the mildness in this town of that, how much does that affect you staying here? How much does that affect your decision to be here?
Well, my dog got cancer, so I can't travel the way I wanted to. That's what's keeping me here, because actually I'm very in danger here. They already sent a child molester into my job, accusing me of stealing shit here. Then I left and I went down to Nevada and got human trafficked back here in a brand new Jeep 2020, then given a felony charge for possession of a stolen vehicle in that Jeep. And they kept me here for 2 years with a felony charge that I got down to a misdemeanor and a $100 fine because the cops refused to give the body cam evidence of the arrest.
See?
So
Body cam evidence. Body cam evidence. They tell us things like it will take an act of God to get it. But meanwhile, the news can get, all right, when I was assaulted by Waylon Lolatai, if somebody would have actually helped me to get that body cam evidence, Waylon Lolatai would not have assaulted Sammy Leon Lawrence IV. He wouldn't have pulled a shotgun on Zaid Atkinson. He would not have assaulted Michelle Rodriguez. He would not have had the opportunity to assault Michelle Clark. I mean, these are all victims of his that happened after I tried to tell on him. And of course, the news was able to get those body cameras, but they didn't even try to get mine. This is a very common tactic. Another tactic is where they run your ID. They're running your ID. It's, first of all, illegal, but they do it anyway. And when they run your ID, they don't give it back. And if you ask for it back, and they'll argue with you, they'll tell you they don't have it, they didn't take it, you never handed it to them, or they tell you they handed it back. Their own body cameras will show that they never handed it back. But meanwhile, when you go in to try to turn them in, they tell you that, well, they need to see some ID.
Yeah, and now you don't have an ID, and you don't have the $50 or the month or the address to get one sent to you, or a number of different things why you can't get an ID. It's the same thing they do with black people to stop them
voting.
From voting. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean,
we're not white people against brown people or black people. We're people just like you. He is a human being with his own thoughts, feelings, and opinions. Me as well. Obviously, I allow him to have opinions that I don't agree with. But there's also the fact that from his experience, it is true from his point of view. It is true from his perspective, from his travels, of course, it's a different type of travel than me, but, many of those things that we have in common are common. Many of those things that we don't have in common are just due to regional differences or a matter of staying too damn long, because the longer you stay in an area, the more in danger you are from police, the more likely it is that they're telling people that you're on drugs, that you're mentally ill, that you're schizophrenic.
And it's not the police in general, it's the people that send them your way. It's the people with money that are protecting their property values over human life. They would rather the cops kill you than you be seen and bring down their property value.
Or people who are paranoid because of wives' tales.
Yeah, that too.
A lot of people call it in just because, all right, so I have Tourette syndrome, right? I have had people call me in for doing drugs because I was doing this. I've had people call me in for doing drugs because I do this with my wrist, which hurts now, by the way, because of an assault by the cops. With Dean, I had a lot of people. The specific story about him getting beaten up by the cops, I mean, the story that I had heard was, I didn't hear about it being in Washington State or anything like that, but the situation that I had heard is that there was something to do with, God, what was it? I have it recorded. I'd have to go back and look at it. But the moral of the story is that they had taken him in because he was trying to tell on the cops, and he wasn't going to stop trying to tell on the cops. And they took him to a mental institution and had him injected with drugs. Now with him, he verified that he had been injected with the Haldol and the Ativan, the 10 and 2. And as we know, that has killed many people. So,
Okay, so that's... I heard it was a beating from the cops. I didn't hear that it was... But I heard it was normal before all of that happened.
It could be both. Like me, I was beaten by the cops, but it was the drugs that they put into me that really made me fucked up for a few days. And it was always for like 2 to 3 days after they'd inject me, I'd be completely fucked in the head.
Yeah.
And then for probably about 6 weeks after that, I had to go through attempted full recovery. Now, not everybody comes back from those injections. But the other thing is, if he got beaten up to that point, that does make sense why he would be trying to turn them in, and it makes sense why they would take him to a hospital and fucking inject him.
Yeah. I mean, the cops, when I got beat up and maced for smoking a cigarette, took me to the town over and put me into
different jurisdiction.
Yeah, and took me into the sheriff's lockup. And as I'm sitting there in the sheriff's lockup, I'm singing a simple song that's, I'm not going to sing it here, but after I was done singing it, the one lady sheriff asked me if I wanted mental health. And all I could think of was, well, basically, what my song sings about is, well, now let me do it for you because you'll understand the context.
Well, I don't know about that. See, if we go a little bit that far, that's kind of getting into the entertainment industry, and we don't want to be stepping on no toes.
No, it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing that's gonna be flagged. It's basically because the words
All right,
are
we're
nowhere.
gonna listen to it.
It basically went along the lines of child molesters to the left of me, child murderers to the right. Here I am, stuck homeless on the streets with you. As these ass clowns walk around like they don't have a clue that they're complicit to the raping children too. And they're pedophiles, live in mansions, it's true. It's hard to wipe the smile off their face as their priests rape their children in the church these days. Now all of that's true. But this lady, the cop, thinks I need mental health because I'm willing to sing it after they beat me up and arrest me for smoking a fucking cigarette, which was violating my human, civil, and constitutional rights. But I need mental health because I see the world for what it is. I don't hide behind the lies. You know, and she's the one that helps enforce that stupidity when she doesn't just recognize that everything I said in that song is true and I don't need mental health. Maybe you need to turn it around.
All right, so with me, my experience is that when I try to turn in the crimes, I'm told to turn it into the police, and they turn me on to mental health. They always do that. When I go and explain it to mental health, the cops leave. They don't stand and listen to what mental health says, so they get plausible deniability. The mental health people tell me, well, that's not our job. You need to take that to the police. I say, hey, you got to see that. The police dropped me off here. I told them, they said I needed to talk to the mental health people. Well, we don't do that. You have to turn in crimes to the police. Well, I tried to turn it into the police, and it becomes, of course, this back and forth argument where I'm going, hey, you guys need to talk to each other. You need to tell these other people this. But then you get to see the situation with Dean up there. They already knew it. They already knew what they were doing. They were in communication. They do communicate. They're in either A, intentionally not communicating those things, or B, they are communicating it. They're just playing fucking stupid.
And that's what it is. They're playing fucking stupid.
I'll give you a lighter for a cigarette.
I'll split this one with you.
Hells yeah.
All I can do for you now.
Now, for us out here, you want to treat us like we're crazy. You want to treat us like we're schizophrenic. But as impossible as it is for us to get heard, it gets to the point where you have to do something crazy. Almost. For me, I've been talking to him a lot.
Neck, you pussy ass little bitch.
Yeah.
Suck my dick, boy. It's bigger than yours.
You decided to be a douchebag, huh?
What are you gonna do, boy? What are you gonna do, bitch? What are you gonna do, bitch? Come on. Come on.
Nice and pleasant, ain't it? All right, I'm going to go pick up a piece of garbage. But these guys right here, that vehicle, it's 3 fucking little punks. Being assholes. Sorry. God damn it. It's going to get me killed. Thank you. Some people just jackasses. He doesn't deserve this. I don't deserve this. But people are more likely to call the cops on the fact that he's obviously angry and perturbed with the situation. Them fucking kids didn't need to do that. There wasn't no need for it. Obviously, they got nice bikes. They got a nice vehicle. They're young. They got parents that can afford shit. They were too young to have earned that.
He's still fucking alive. Put it that way.
See?
I'll snap one of these privileged pedophile dick suckers kids next thing, motherfucker. Oh, I need that.
And that's a little scary. Oh, yeah. Sorry. See, that's scary for me because I'm against violence, but I get your frustration right now. You're shaking like a leaf. You got adrenaline going through you like a motherfucker.
I will beat the brakes off them because their parents refuse to do that. I will beat the fucking brakes off them because their parents refuse to do it.
I hate
That's
that
the
word.
simple fact.
I hate that word. I'll be right back, though. I'm going to go see if there's a tobacco over here. know, when you call a homeless person over and you dangle them a hook and pretend like you're trying to be nice to them, and then I don't even want to talk right now. With his frustration and the things that he's saying, obviously he's very, very angry about the situation, and he's obviously venting. Now, for you guys, you're hearing him say all of that mean, evil, hateful stuff that he's saying. That is literally right as it's happening. He's not happy about it. It ain't okay to treat a person like that. But of course, also, I don't want to, it scares me. It scares the living shit out of me when people talk about hurting people. Even if it's a situation like that, it scares me. You know how long it took me to say anything like that after people started assaulting me and threatening my life? They started assaulting me and threatening my life all the way back in 2016. Now, for me to actually threaten them back, that didn't happen until April of 2018. At my grandma's funeral, when I threatened Ted Bollinger if he did anything to Alicia Bollinger's family, any of his exes, or any of them kids. And I admitted to it. I still admit to it to this day. But how long was that after the first threat against my life? How many phone calls did I receive? How many emails did I receive? How many friggin' Facebook messages I received from people that knew me, telling me to kill myself even? I mean, it's so much to have to deal with. For this guy here, for him to go off like he did, I understand why, and I hope you guys understand. A lot of people that I stayed with were doing that in person right in front of me just that fast. I mean, you guys don't understand how much hell I went through before I ever did anything of that sort. I didn't threaten anybody's life until after Natalie was dead, and that's only because people were fucking dying like you would. Oh my God. Like, just like flies, just like somebody set up dominoes and just knocked them all over. Now, of course, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists who want to tell me, I tell them how many people are dead, and they want to tell me, oh, well, they're probably getting murdered by the CIA. Like, no, they're not getting murdered by the CIA. Oh, well, in this movie and in that movie, they talk about how, the cops and the CIA can murder you with these brain waves. And why do you think I talk to you about these brain waves? Because, yes, this is people who wanted to help me. This is their conspiracy theories that they're spitting at me. And some of them, that one is quite a bit far-fetched. But what's not far-fetched is the target of opportunity theory. That's the theory that Joseph Michael Lopez picked Natalie Marie Bollinger specifically because Natalie was pretending I was some sort of friggin' monster. There's a heart. It's upside down, but it reminds me of Mowgli. I'm not sure if it's able to show it because I can't see it, but let me see. Well, we don't want to pluck it, but that's it. Anyway, I'm not sure if you were able to see that because I can't actually see the screen when I try to point it. And anyway, you got to hear that man's frustration. You got to see that, well, yeah, he pumped up quick. That's what most of you guys do. For him in a heightened situation, especially with his situation being as scary as it is. Now, there's a lot of things that many of us out here on the streets are sick of. We're sick of being victimized, told it's our fault. We're sick of being told that there's all these pedophiles running the government, and we have all this evidence that we get thrown in our faces all the time that it's actually our government and the people of our government committing these crimes. And of course, with the Miss Maxwell situation, you get to see how even though most of these trials, they try to make it public and try to give out all that information to everybody, and this one it's hush hush and it's quiet. Same thing with Epstein on three different occasions that he was arrested. Why is it that all 3 times that they hid that stuff? So, I mean, I get why he's going off on the Epstein thing. I get why many of you are going off on the Epstein thing. He thinks cutting the head off the snake is the best way to do it, and he might be right. I might be wrong. He might be 100% right. Now, as far as cutting the head off the snake, though, that's like I was saying before, you know, people who hold those positions and hold that power, when there are people under them who are allowed to look at them and allowed to investigate them. I'm sorry, my head itches. I walked under the pine needles and they tickled my head. So, when they have somebody under them that can investigate them, they're going to appoint somebody under them who's as crooked, if not worse, than they are. And that's just because, well, that's job security. You know, the child molester that you hired for the position below you, he doesn't want to turn you in because he's a child molester too. He's got no incentive. Lack of incentive. All right. This tree right here is another one of the ones with the sap coming out of it. You guys got to see some of this stuff melted down on my dash. This is what it looks like before I take it off the tree, though. See this little pustule here? And it squeezed some out. Yep. That's what it looked like. A lot of us out on the streets have knowledge and information and useless stuff that we know, but it's all useful somewhere. If I had some folks that decided they wanted to make a old-time wooden boat factory, well, I could show them how to harvest a lot of these materials, and I could teach them a little bit about building, and they could teach me a little bit about building too, especially if they have experience building boats. I know how to harvest this stuff. I could get them some of the materials needed as long as we're in the right area. But, of course, you know, this is a pipe dream. Where are you going to find a fantasy like that ready-made for you? Well, there is actually a man in Washington State who has a boat building studio. That's what it's called, a boat building studio. He makes Viking ships, and he teaches, well, smaller versions of the Viking ships. They're called clinker builts. And he teaches people how to make them, and they work together and make them. If you pay him to build a boat, he won't build it for you. He'll build it with you and teach you how to do it. He might even teach you how to maintain it. Now, that would be great, but I got safety issues in Washington State. Dean, well, he seems to have some safety issues in Washington State, too, according to this situation. But damn, you know, for me, I understand the man's frustration here. I really do. I understand Dean's frustration. I really do. But, you know, the whole threatening to kill people and talking about killing people and hurting people, you know, that's something I have been speaking out against and trying to get people to understand how scary that is for me. Obviously, I had to get away from that man, and obviously I am not angry or livid or hateful towards him at all. I got to see the situation. Just God, you know, why? Why did those kids need to do that? Now, you guys might say, oh, well, his reaction was wrong. His reaction was wrong. No, it's not wrong. It's not. I mean, maybe if it was the first time, maybe if he was able to take situations like that to the police and have them actually care. But, of course, people don't care because those kids were just teasing. It's not just teasing. When you teach your kids that that's okay and your kids get away with doing shit like that, no, you are fucking doing a shitty goddamn job as a parent. You have not taught your children humanity. Chances are, if you're teaching your children to be like those little fuckers were, you're probably Nebraskan or worse. Which, well, I'm not sure if you can get worse than Nebraska in this country. Wyoming is about equal on shitty terms. Colorado's got services. You might get lucky enough to hit upon one, but Nebraska, no. Wyoming, no. They got services for pretty white girls and pretty white girls alone. Anyway, he will be calmed down a little bit when I get back over there, but he'll still have that adrenaline. I mean, he is shaking like a fucking leaf. That adrenaline will be in his system for a good 20 to 30 minutes before he's able to calm down. For me, most of the time when I am fucking angry, there's no adrenaline to it. There's no adrenaline behind it. I have to put on an act. Now, some people want to compare that with Joseph Michael Lopez. Like Joseph Lopez claiming that he didn't have any real emotions and he had to learn how to fake it. I don't have to learn how to fake my emotions. I have intense emotions. I have to hide my emotions so that I'm not punished for having them, which is a far different scenario. For me, I had to learn how to, all right, for example, if I'm scared or I'm nervous or I'm excited, I might do this with my eyes. Now, that is not the standard reaction that somebody has when they're scared. When somebody's scared, they don't usually start doing this. When somebody's excited, they don't usually start doing this. You know? So when people have an adverse reaction to me because I'm different, it's mannerisms that I didn't choose for those mannerisms to be different. I knew from growing up in the system that even in the fight or flight thing, even when they're trying to break your arm, because that's what they did in the 80s. Today, they use all sorts of wrist locks, which of course in MMA is actually illegal because it's excruciatingly painful, and you could maim somebody for life, which of course the officers in Boulder tried to do because they thought they were going to frame me for a crime that I didn't commit. Try to paint me as a violent, crazy person. Of course, how many years had I been speaking out about Boulder? A lot. They had every reason and every incentive to break the laws that they did. They had every reason and every incentive. Anyway, we're going to go back to that, man. I want to make sure he's all right, but it looks to me like, Jesus, fuck, you know, teach your kids to be fucking human. Teach your kids that we're human. You still shaking?
I might not agree with it, but if I hold that shit in, it takes it out on somebody that doesn't deserve it.
Ah, see, right there. See, he just said something that I have been speaking out about for years. Take it out on the right motherfucker and do it immediately. If that little bastard wants to chase your daughter on the playground and hit her, you don't fucking tell your daughter that he did it because he likes her. You go over and you let that little fucking bastard and his fucking parents know that shit ain't okay. You let him know immediately, because if you don't, he's going to do it again to somebody else, and again to someone else, and again to someone else. And every time he does it, he is going to feel more free and liberal about doing it. The more he does it and gets away with it, the more he is self-assured that he will get away with it again, and he will advance to more violence, more frequent violence, and people will end up dead. It starts off on the fucking playground. It starts off in the crib. It starts off with the music that you listen to while you are pregnant.
I'm going to take off. I just waited until you got back over here with your stuff.
Thank you much. I didn't want to hang out with you anyway. You're ugly. Your mama dressed you funny.
Ugly. Understand, when I do say the N-word, though, it's called white people and their little fucking privileged children. And I never say it to a black man or around a black man. And if I do, by accident, I will go up and explain to that black man what I was doing. He wants to hit me.
I was telling you the name of a band. I'm sorry. I know the name of it. I should have just NWA. Right?
Don't forget your lighter right here. Make sure you.
Well, I didn't want to hang out with the lighter either. I was going to trade it to you for half a cigarette, remember?
I know. I'm sorry.
I got half of one right here. It's a menthol, but I'll smoke it.
Oh.
Anyway, the McDonald's has an outlet. I plugged into it. It's working, so my battery's almost dead.
Oh, wow. Was it the Starbucks or the McDonald's?
The McDonald's.
Oh, the one outside?
Nope, the one inside.
I guess they shut it off during COVID. Because I know they had a few people try to go in there and do that shit when COVID was going, and they were just like, no, we can't have you in here.
Yes, sir.
Why is this 10 times more heavier? And I forgot I just put a bag of dog food in there.
You did just put a bag of dog food in there. All right, so we have similar experience but different opinions on most of those, or on many of those experiences. A lot of them we have the same exact opinion on, and some of them the opinion fluctuates a little bit. However, the experiences themselves are important. If his are different than mine, and they conflict with mine, that doesn't mean that they didn't happen. That doesn't mean there's no possibility of it happening. And the fact is, there's enough stuff that he's dealt with that we've also got to record from many other people on the streets. It's a commonplace. It is common knowledge. Now, with what happened to Dean, with what he had heard and with what I had heard, there's no guarantee that both of them didn't happen. And with my experience, with me having both happen, often, more than once, absolutely there is a possibility and a very likely probability that both of us are right. That both of us were told good, proper information.
You have a good one.
I'll pretend to. I'm still prettier than you are, though.
That's fine. I have an ugly soul sometimes, but I'm purposely ugly this way.
It's useful.
There's 10 crack commandments, there's 10 homeless commandments. The first homeless commandment is don't fuck with women in any town.
See, I always thought number one was don't talk to police.
Well, that you just can't help sometimes. I mean, don't tell them shit.
You too will do. Alright, so that was over an hour long. When he's a little bit more calmed down and obviously not going for a walk, we'll let him tell his story. That shit was just fucked up. Hey! Hey, your water bottle! Alright, I'm gonna end this video and I'm gonna take this water bottle. I can't hear what he said. I think he said just to set it here because he's going to come back over here. So he's probably going to calm down for a few, maybe have a cigarette or smoke a bowl or something. Just fucking wind down. That shit was bullshit. Anyway, y'all stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper. No victim left behind.